We welcome Srimati Ranjana Chopra ji, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Culture. So, in more than one way, literature and other arts are inseparable. To be more practical, literature itself is an art. The purpose of art is to serve as a medium of communication between the artist and the world. In the same way, when an author writes stories, poems, plays, or other literary forms, they become media through which the author communicates in the world. When written and read, it is a play. When the same play is performed, it is a drama. When the lyrics, poems, songs are merely written and read out, they are part of literature. When they are set to particular set of tunes, they become music. That music inspires plenty of writers, is well known and true across the civilizations. Many ballets and modern dances are based on stories or poems. Sometimes music and dance are accompanied by a text read by a speaker or chanted by chorus. Many movies across languages have made out of novels and novellas in all the nations. Cross fertilization of literature and the arts now takes place more subtly. Mostly in the use of parallel techniques, the rational dissociation of the two pieces, or the spontaneous action painting of the abstract expressionist, for example. It is not as if all these relationships between literature and other arts were discovered and practiced in reality only in the West. In ancient India, diverse arts were intertwined and closely interacted with each other. In the ancient time, Natyasastra conceived and defined Natya or performance as a composite art consist of other arts. In the medieval period, different regional Bhakti movements that swept over the subcontinent reinforced the already existing links between the arts. In the northeastern region of India, Shankardeva and the literature he produced, the art forms he practiced highlight the interconnectedness of literature and other arts. They not only produced great poetic works, but also gave rise to a host of dance, music, and theatre genres in the far-flung regions during their heyday till colonial disruption. The period of Great Indian Renaissance, before and after colonialism, gave a birth to all our arts, literature included. The greatest figure of the period, Rabindranath Tagore, took all forms for his province poetry, drama, fiction, music, and painting. In the more recent and contemporary period, the exchange and relationship between the arts is happening in two ways. Following Tagore, several geniuses are working simultaneously in more than one genre. Satyajit Ray, Girish Karnad, and M.T. Vasudevan Nair were equally at home in literature, theatre, music, or under cinema. G.R. Santosh and Kula Muhammad Sheikh have enriched both poetry and painting. Another fine example we have with us living legend Sri Jatin Das ji, who equally master in poetry and painting as well. Another type of exchange is the intersemotic translation between different forms. The staging of contemporary literature has become an established practice, as has filming of literary classics. TV and cyberspace have been the latest means of interfacing and dissemination of literature and other arts. So the present digital age has more than highlighted the inextricable relationship between literature and other arts. The dawn of e-literature, Instagram poetry, flash fiction, etc., represent the new genres where written literature and visual medium meet. So we have a wonderful panelist from all these fields and reputed, our respected governor himself is a very eminent author who writes in Malayalam. Is chairing this session. And with these few words, I'm glad to welcome all of you once again. And I'm grateful to Honorable Governor, in spite of the hectic schedule, could able to make it. Thank you, sir. With your words, once again, I'm welcoming all the dignitaries on the dais and on the opposite. Thank you.
थैंक यू। आभार के श्रीनिवास राव जी, सेक्रेटरी साहित्य अकादमी का। साथ ही मैं उनसे निवेदन करूंगा, रंजना चोपड़ा जी भी यहाँ हम सबके बीच उपस्थित हुई है, उनका भी उन्हें अंगवस्त्र भेंट कर उनका भी इस अवसर पर स्वागत अभिनंदन करें, सेक्रेटरी साहित्य अकादमी के श्रीनिवास राव जी। और साथ में साहित्य अकादमी की पुस्तक भी उन्हें भेंट करें। और आप सबकी तरफ से निवेदन का तलध्वनि के लिए आपकी राउंड ऑफ अप्लॉज उसके लिए जरूर होगा। एक बार तालियों से उनका स्वागत अभिनंदन करें। Thank you very much for coming and joining, Ranjana ji. And now, with the permission of the chair, may I should start inviting the guests. और उसके पहले भी एक जरूरी सूचना है। We have the timing for each speaker is 8 to 10 minutes, so that in time we can conclude the session. So please. और इस क्रम में सबसे पहले मैं इनवाइट करना चाहूंगा रंजना चोपड़ा जी को। 1994 बैच के आप ओडिशा काडर के आईएएस अधिकारी हैं और समय वर्तमान में आप संस्कृति मंत्रालय भारत सरकार में एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी और फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर के रूप में कार्यरत हैं। इसके पहले भी तमाम दूसरी मिनिस्ट्रीज में, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ लॉ एंड जस्टिस, इसके अलावा मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ टूरिज्म, उस इन मंत्रालयों में भी आपने अपनी सेवाएं दी हैं, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट में भी अपनी सेवाएं दी है। संस्कृति या पर्यटन मंत्रालयों के माध्यम से देश की जो टेंजिबल और इंटेंजिबल हेरिटेज है, उसको सहेजने में, उसको संवर्धित करने में बहुत महत्वपूर्ण इन रूपों में आपका योगदान रहा है। और इस अवसर पर मैं सबसे पहले उन्हें ही वक्ता के रूप में आमंत्रित करता हूँ। रंजना चोपड़ा जी पहली वक्ता, आपकी करतल ध्वनि के साथ, आपकी तालियों के साथ आइए उन्हें इनवाइट करते हैं।
Honorable Chairperson of the session, distinguished panelists on the stage, very eminent artists, scholars, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank Sahitya Akademi for having extended this invitation to me. It is indeed a matter of privilege and great honor, sir, to be sharing the stage with such eminent personalities from the field of art and literature. I am truly humbled. And as I was going through the agenda of this festival and for this session, I was immediately reminded of the experience I had when I had gone to Vrindavan a few weeks. This construct between literature and other art forms, whether it is the performing art or whether it is the tangible art forms that we have, I personally feel, without much knowledge, um, that this is a very artificial construct, one, and two, that this construct in India is the product of modern era. If we go back into our history, if we go back into our literature, all these art forms were very beautifully synergized. There was no distinction. Like these art forms weren't in silos, they weren't active in vacuum. And in Vrindavan, I had the privilege of experiencing that. We have always heard that the devotion in Vrindavan for Lord Krishna, the bhakti, that is actually best represented through music and dance. We all know the story of Swami Haridas ji. We all know that how with his devotion he was able to melt stones, right? So, but then in Vrindavan, that feeling, that vibe is very palpable. When I went to Banke Bihari ji, unlike the other temples that we have in our country, in Banke Bihari ji, you find that the devotees who have come are not eager to go close to Banke Bihari ji, the statue or the deity, the Vigraha of Lord Krishna. In Banke Bihari, I found that majority of the devotees were very happy standing where they are, looking at the Vigraha, some of them crying, some of them dancing. So then I realized that actually bhakti or devotion is best represented in our culture through music, through dance. And I think these are the traditions which are very, very strongly entrenched in our society. And I'm also very, very honored to be sharing the stage with Jatin Das ji. As our anchor was mentioning, I belong to Orissa cadre. And in fact, I had a couple of examples from Orissa. And the biggest example is Raghurajpur. In case we look at Raghurajpur, we find that Raghurajpur is the center for Chitra, but it is also the birthplace of Guru Kelucharan Mahaprabhu. This is not a coincidence. because it is through painting, which actually is, Vishnu Leela, which is Shri Jagannath Leela, and the dance form of Odissi. It is very, very closely interlinked. You look at Sri Jagannath temples, rituals, and festivals, one finds that each ritual has its own songs, has its own songs for the deity, the music, the dance, and no ritual is complete without this. In case we look at Odissi dance form, then the Tribhanga posture of Odissi dance form is what is represented in the temples of Konark and other temples in Orissa. So there is actually, in case we look back into our history, as our Jarinderji was mentioning while introducing me, I have the privilege of actually also having a bird's eye view on what Archaeological Survey of India is doing and also what academies like Sahitya Academy and Sangeet Natak Academy are doing. But I always very strongly feel that there is a very, very porous boundary between the tangible and the intangible culture that we have. Going back to Rig Ved, Dr. Rao mentioned about Natya Shastra, but when we see Rig Ved, all the hymns were meant to be sung. They weren't meant to be read. They were meant to be sung. When we look at all the beautiful work by our dramatists like Kalidas, they were meant to be personified. They were meant to be enacted. They weren't meant to be read. So this reading this distinction between literature and the other forms, I think is very contemporary, very Western. In India, we've always had a very, very assimilative culture and especially among the intangible elements of our culture. So it is a great opportunity for me to be here. And I think I would like to leave this one last thought with all of you. Going forward, not only in Ministry of Culture, but each one of you, you're very, very, you're having a large sphere of influence of your own. All of you are opinion leaders who are here in this hall. I think gradually we have to move to occasions where we are able to blend the art form. For example, in this Rabindra Bhavan premises, we have Sangeet Natak Academy, Sahitya Academy, and Lalit Kala Academy. But we have never really thought of a festival which is representative to all the art that these academies represent. So I think Ministry of Culture, I can assure you that we seriously think in lines of curating a festival which actually represents the art forms of India, not only a festival of letters, not a festival of dance, not a festival of visual arts, but a festival where all our tangible heritage and culture elements can be represented. With these few thoughts, I would once again like to express my gratitude to Sahitya Academy and my one request to the Honorable Chairperson of the panel that if I can be excused, sir, I have this an urgent board meeting which was pre-scheduled, which I missed. So I would beg to be excused, but it has really been an honor to come and meet all of you and address this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ranjana ji. आप मीटिंग से ही उठकर और फिर मीटिंग ही आगे शेड्यूल इसलिए आपको जाना है, लेकिन फिर भी एक कमिटमेंट इस फेस्टिवल को लेकर, सब्जेक्ट को लेकर, जो विच इज वेरी क्लोज टू हर हार्ट, और जिसका एक रिफ्लेक्शन आपने देखा उनकी उस कमिटमेंट या वो विजन के प्रति जो फ्यूचर के लिए उन्होंने बताया कि किस तरह के फेस्टिवल को हम और क्यूरेट कर सकते हैं, बना सकते हैं, विजुअलाइज कर सकते हैं. थैंक यू वेरी मच. थैंक्स फॉर योर प्रेजेंस एंड थैंक्स फॉर योर एड्रेस. देवी सज्जनों, हमारे अगले वक्ता इस देश के नहीं बल्कि विश्व के बहुत ही विख्यात, जिन्हें हम पेंटर के रूप में जानते हैं, पोइट के रूप में जानते हैं, स्कल्पटर के रूप में जानते हैं, म्यूरलिस्ट के रूप में जानते हैं, प्रिंट मेकर, टीचर, कल्चरल एक्सपर्ट, तमाम ऐसे रूप हैं. और जो विषय है वो लगता है कि एक जगह वो सब इकट्ठा होकर एक व्यक्तित्व में समाहित हो गया है, जो जतिन दास जी हैं. He has held about 80 one-man shows and participated in numerous exhibitions and artist camps nationally and internationally as well. His works are in several public and private collections in India and abroad. In 2012, he was conferred with the Padma Bhushan by Government of India. He founded the JD Center of Art for his past 50 years of collection of folk, tribal, classical, and contemporary art. His retrospective show, with works from 1963 to 2023, was held at the National Gallery of Modern Art, Delhi. ऐसी विभूति का आपकी करतल ध्वनि के साथ मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा जतिन दास जी से कि वो इस अवसर पर, इस विषय पर अपने व्याख्यान से हम सबका ज्ञानवर्धन करें. आदरणीय जतिन दास जी.
we are at this center, which is very unusual in the country, which is very good and correct, that the Academy of Sahitya Akademi, Sangeet Natak and Lalit Kala Academies together under one roof. But we should mentally break the walls and interact with each other. This is a unique country in the world where all the art forms were with each other, not like uh, uh, coffee and sugar. That this is a country where we talked about Krishna had chosen Chikala. Uh, when uh, when I write in my brochure, I say I'm a painter to become an artist. If I meet a 20-year-old young person, say, "What do you do?" and the person says, "I'm an artist." We have unfortunately imbibed Western education system till today. And so we separate, or not only all the art forms. Say during COVID, I was locked up in Asiad village, and I went on drawing the leaves and flowers in the garden. And I found 90% of the flowers had 5 petals. And the leaves were from one place or alternatively like this. If we teach drawing, botany, dance, all this together, then a child will learn better. In Scandinavia, especially in Finland, they teach one subject a day, and the child doesn't carry a. I'm just giving you different anecdotes to share a thought. I was doing a workshop in Maximala Bhavan in Delhi, and they asked me about 40 years ago, and they have a mango tree. So this was almost a season like this, or little warmer. So I said, let's get some raw mango, the right sucking mango, and to chop the mango. But I wanted the parents, children, and the teachers all to be present under that mango tree, and they all had shared the mango. And I forget there was a singer and a dancer I had invited to sing and dance pertaining to the mood and the season. And then they did the drawing of the mango tree. And about 3, 4 years ago, I met a Sardarji with a child, was walking on the street and came and touched my feet. He said, I was a child when you talked about the mango thing. And so he remembered all that. So it's all our childhood that we all spent by the river, by the mountain, with parents, with friends, and we have imbibed innumerable things and thoughts about art and aesthetics. Say, when we design the theater, it is semicircular, it's not parallel to the stage. I remember when I was a student in JJ School of Art in Bombay, and I was to listen to classical music opposite Opera House. And Bade Ghulam Ali Khan was singing, and suddenly the microphone went off. He sang for 2,000 people without a microphone. One day in my house in Asia, I had 8 or 10 friends, including a very famous musician, and he wanted a microphone. I'm just giving you little anecdotes to share a thought. And when the opera singers sing anywhere in the world, they don't use a microphone. So we in our country out of inferiority complex, have imbibed a lot of the Western ideas, thoughts. A lot of people call themselves modern artists. It's a very vulgar word. You're a contemporary artist or a traditional artist. You're not a modern artist. Modern is a very cheap word, you know. But these are various innumerable anecdotes there, and where we have not changed our education system. Uh, all the allied art forms are related with each other. As I said, Krishna and Chausatikala. I remember one day my sister was doing literature in Shantiniketan, and a famous dancer today was young and went to her, "Can you tell me about Radha?" So she said, "Unless I talk about Krishna, I can't talk about Radha." He said, "I don't have much time," she said, the dancer, "and just tell me about Radha." No? So each thing is related. Our language, when you see the land, the Maharashtra, Gujarat, Kerala, Rajasthan, etc., every 100 kilometers, the language changes, the dialect changes. It's a unique country in the world in every field of art and aesthetics. And JJ School of Art is another where we have applied art, architecture, painting, sculpture, craft, all under one roof at one campus. When we did these art schools elsewhere, because this is the oldest art school in the country, the government and the public and the people who designed, they did not consider that this was a role model of the contemporary time. But this country had fantastic. If a Rajkumar was sent to an ashram to learn art, he was treated like everybody else. And he goes to the Guru, said, "I want to learn music." Okay, then Guru said, "Go and learn Mridangam." And then go on. Eventually, he's sent to the garden to look after animals and to water plants and to wash clothes. Then after 2 years, the music teacher goes to him in winter. He said, "Let's have a bath in the river. You sit down and do sa." Because by then, he had the kalkal of the river. He listened to the breezes and every element of nature he had imbibed by then. So each thing depends on the other. This is a unique country where all these concepts exist. It's not old and new. Uh, like when you say you learn everything properly, then unlearn everything properly, then do manodharmi. Then whatever your mind says. But आजकल क्या करते हैं मनमानी करते हैं. You know, when I was a student in JJ, we had to deliver 20 sketches to enter the class. I used to do 300 sketches a day by buying on my own. I bought paper from the Times of India by Rattal, by kilo, and sketch and go 7 kilometers sketching by saving the money from the bus. Listen to Bade Gulama Likha, then go to the hostel. I did a portrait sketch of Bade Gulama Likha 1961. Likewise. So what I'm saying that each art form is related, not only art form, in life also. And there was a super cyclone in Orissa, and various other people came and built houses. So I told the chief minister, that's very good that it's happening, but the houses should be built according to Orissan concept, the inner courtyard and veranda, because all the craftsmen only sleep maybe even on the veranda, but they spent all their time in the veranda doing their craft. So the veranda and the inner courtyard is very important. So likewise, then when I'm talking of designing architects, architects are imbibing from Corbusier, Prince Lloyd Wright, etc. But this country has fantastic concepts of architecture. When you talk of sculpture and painting and mural in a building, It was conceived right from the beginning when a woman holding the load as a bracket, and it shows as if she's holding a flower, but she's holding the bracket, and it was designed when the building was conceived. So this is an extraordinary country. I'm very happy to be born here. If you just scratch under the earth, you will find innumerable concepts. Say, the most important art form is food, because in food you can smell, you can touch, and there are different kinds of taste of food, and all the art forms are there in food, you know. So, in some of the important institutions in the world, they teach, even architecture students are taught pottery, painting, music, and cooking also. It is most important art form than amongst all other art forms. I'll read you a few poems because I was told we have about 8 to 10 minutes, and I'll read a few poems. I write poems also for 70 years, and I brought out Professor P. Lal of Writers Workshop brought out a book of my poems in 1974. And you see, we had a poetry group in Bombay, in Jahangir Art Gallery in the Samovar on Sundays. Nissim Ezekiel, Dilip Chitre, Arun Koladkar, uh, 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 R. Parthasarathi, Geet Patel, and me. And we had no outsider, no press people, no listener, just between us who read our poems. And these are the top poets, English poets of in the country. This is a poem called Line, written in 2010. A drawing draws itself in conti or ink, with no beginning or end. A line has no history. Line never ends. It begins and flows like blood, a river that feeds the sea. Drawing is sheer poetry, and a poem is the night void without darkness. A line stretches, it divides space, not time. Space can't hold time. A line begins and gets drawn for no reason. Read you another. It's called a private confession. Curtaining my windows, I behave a bourgeois. With temptation not affording it, I turn a proletarian and open up the openings to the sky. It is very much the same when I attempt to sign a check to a taxi driver. Instead, I walk the distance. Now I realize and take a stock of myself and accept can't be in the midstream to learn to swim. Begging down to brass and getting down threadbare, I no longer weave patterns in my mind. I'm turned a socialist overnight. You know, like earlier in our country, we didn't clap. We said sadhu sadhu. Or if the people were after poem reading or a music, they were quiet. Then they enjoyed the music. Poem doesn't need a reader. When you pen a poem, the page has to be stark white and uncreased. and preferably a fountain pen and black ink, loam, to write in the garden or to write in the garden or in the toilet. But sometimes on a newsprint, in between a drawing, during a tea break. A poem is like feeding or farting. The fountain head is to burst open. A poem permeates and percolates down the throat. And poem doesn't need a reader. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Yatindra, for this wonderful presentation and sharing your experiences, thoughts, and vision about the different art forms. हमारे अगले वक्ता श्री एम के रैना साहब होंगे। आप जानते हैं एम के रैना साहब बहुत ही प्रसिद्ध एक रंग व्यक्तित्व के रूप में उनकी ख्याति है देश और दुनिया भर में। आपके पास 4 दशकों से भी अधिक का रंग क्षेत्र का अनुभव है और दक्षिण एशिया में समकालीन और पारंपरिक रंगमंच इन दोनों पर ही बहुत बड़े स्तर पर और बहुत बड़े अनेक तरीकों से आपने इसको कंट्रीब्यूट किया है, उसमें अपना योगदान दिया है। लेकिन और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण एक बात जो हमेशा जिसकी विशेष तौर पर चर्चा की जाती है, कश्मीर के पारंपरिक लोक रंगमंच आर्ट पाथियर को पुनर्जीवित करने में, रिवाइव करने में आपकी बहुत महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका रही है। कई राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संस्थानों के विजिटिंग फैकल्टी के रूप में श्री रैना संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका के स्टैनफोर्ड विश्वविद्यालय में फेलो रहे हैं। सहमत नामक ट्रस्ट के आप संस्थापक सदस्य हैं। साथ ही साउथ एशिया फाउंडेशन भारत के न्यासी हैं और संगीत नाटक अकादमी पुरस्कार से आपको सम्मानित किया जा चुका है। इसके अलावा संस्कृत पुरस्कार, दीवी कारंत लाइफ टाइम अचीवमेंट अवार्ड और अन्य इस तरह के बहुत सारे सम्मान, और उनकी उपस्थिति से हमें जो सम्मान मिलता है वो बहुत विशेष होता है। आपकी करतल ध्वनि के साथ एम के रैना साहब को आमंत्रित करता हूँ अपने विचार इस विषय को लेकर आपके साथ।
Your Excellency, it's a privilege and the first time that ever I have been speaking in this building where I got baptized in theatre because my National School of Dramas was on the 3rd floor. And Jatin Das used to come and teach us post making and appreciation of art. While he was talking, I was just thinking where do I sort of arrange my stuff. You know, there's a theater outside, right outside here called Make Theater. It's a beautiful theater. It was designed by my guru Al-Qazi, who had no money in 68, 69, I think. After 2:30, we finished our classes. We had to do manual labor and build this theater with all of us picking bricks up. And he himself used to, those pictures should be there, and he was picking up 20 bricks on his head along. Then when your guru does, then you do double, not to be impressive. And it broke my heart recently when I went to see this theater, how it has been vandalized. It is not under National School of Rama now, it's under Sahitya Akademi. I'm sorry I'm making this complaint, but there is the question of aesthetics. There is the question of when you want to change something, new things, how do you do it? You don't get an illiterate designer and he cuts the half of that beautiful tree, the front of the cut, and monstrous bridge has been. And the beautiful thing about this was people used to come to watch this play under the beautiful tree, and you can't see that tree now when you're at the auditorium. I went recently to Ajanta, and I had a guide. For 2 days, I was with my torch looking at everything. And when you look at, he was telling me, look at this painting. This is a Persian character here, a Greek character here, and they were there. And so, which gives you an idea, we are not an isolated society, which was for ages alone working. It's not the truth. Seeds of commerce and seeds of aesthetics fly. There's a principle of dispersal of seeds. And wherever they will find a fertile soil, they will sprout and grow. India has been also a melting pot of many civilizations. When you use your words, just decode how many words you're speaking of some other Arabic language, Persian word, Sanskrit word, and how it has got together. And that's what we are all about. Then you look at, we have lost this, as I was saying. You look, your manuscripts, you go to museums and you see it wasn't only text which was written on it. It was beautifully designed paintings and motifs. Not a little space was not on left. When we talk of an art, it was the multiplicity simultaneously happening. And that principle is a principle, I don't know, it has been here, it is everywhere. You go to pyramids, you see something else. You go to Afghanistan, you see Buddha there. These are not that we only did it. This is a little bit upsets me, this little bit of a ignorance. Only we have it. We have changed. We're making nuclear bombs. So therefore, what does that mean? That we will not make nuclear bombs to save our nation? We will have to do it. Now, coming to culture, in my theater, my major problem is always how does the man at the last row understand? Not only the man who is educated, who has exposure. So I have to decode for him, not making a cash out of it. Fly his imagination, give shot to his imagination. Where I pick up these things, I have to transit from discipline to discipline and discipline. I break sometimes. Therefore, text of the drama, which is written by playwright, is one thing, it's not the thing. From those words, it gives me the window or the ventilation. I can enter that word, and through that I will make something much bigger, which will be understood by the audience, which will connect him to his life, to his struggle, or to his imagination, like that. So that comes to me from my just being today. While I have huge tradition, I also have bad traditions also. It's not everything is beautiful. I remember doing the small modern play, which is a Bhavai of Gujarat. When we did that play, original play, Jasma was the main character, used to commit sati. And we used to call her, what a beautiful tradition. When we did it, there was a big discussion, should we do it or not? And we had to reinterpret. There was a huge discussion how it should be done. Traditionalists in Gujarat did not like it, but my modern time, modern, and whether it is called modern contemporary times, we will have to change. We will have to do things. I'll give few examples how I put these uh, things come into me work in the play. In that place, I use cinema. I, I use puppetry. I use puppetry. I use uh, all kinds of things, even the toys, because I have to make a metaphor. I have to make a comment. I have to make people understand why I'm doing it. So I should not be, only looking at the words, what they say. Through those words, I make highways, whether it is, I did Dharamvir Bharati's Andhayuk, I did Mantu, I did Ajgar Wajah's play, I did Godan, all kind, you will see, it's not just a play, there are many things which are entering the play. I'll give you just an example. I was very much interested in Mantu for my 10th class. It was like he's a Kashmiri, so I was more interested in him. Then when I was reading his things, I realized before freedom, he was food, 3 stories. And after freedom, 3 stories against food. And he has written about those places himself, and there are other writers who have written about it. And there is a story which is an avant-garde story called Toba Takes. My question only was that time, what did this great writer get after freedom? Nothing. He died immediately in 50. He died. So I wanted to enter his text through the mad characters of Toba Take Singh. Toba Take Singh was a form, a story, in which these 6 stories enter like waves. And again, Toba Take Singh happens. And not a word I wrote myself or Rajesh Joshi who was scripting it me. Mantu is talked by every. You are talking Mantu, I'm talking back Mantu. Everybody is talking Mantu, Mantu, Mantu. And it became kind of an orchestra piece in an asylum. So now in that, uh, what we did, we broke the rule of the game. Okay, कहानी Mantu की कहानियां, my contribution, my angers, I my suffering for donkey's years. How do I express through Mantu contemporary times of partition, contemporary time of killing? People died like carrots. That was the idea. So therefore, what he did that time, he did his own. I am using that material for something else. Like there, I did Andhayu, just a few examples. I did Andhayu play. And if you remember, there is that story in Mahabharata when Ashwatthama sees a dream of crow and owl. And he realizes how he has to kill Pandavas. Now he enters the camp because this owl, how he catches this crow. Normally, what do people do? They make one crow and another big and jump, have a music and a little lights and do it. But then there is text. Text is poetry. Gramir Bharati is writing poetry. And I cannot violate that. My I have parameters under which I enter. I said, what do I do with it? It is the turning point of Mahabharata. This dream is not just a dream, it is where he starts playing the first foul. उत्तरा के घर पर मैं गिरूंगा. That means पूरा वंश खत्म करेगा वो पांडवों का. When that little baby who is in the garb of his mother, he wants to finish that. So what we did, I said, I have a tradition of puppetry. These leather puppets in Andhra, these huge oak puppets. Let me get those puppets made and we'll do the whole piece in the shadow puppets. And then shadow puppet will work with it. I have a friend called Dadi Padamji. I called him, I said, Dadi, this is the problem. He said, are you mad? It will take 6 months to make one leg of the puppet because, in the leather is a technology. What he did, we got the thinnest ply, which can, it's like a foil. And he made one wing with 1 6 and a 4, 6 and a 4, 6 and a 4, 3 parts. And it had to be manipulated by 4 poles. 4 actors were doing the pantomime. So we entered through tradition, I entered into contemporary. And when that scene came, it was very, very different. So same puppetry entered in another play of mine. That was a practical theater problem. It is called Veeragati. There is a scene of Swayamvar. This silly boy does not like any girls. He's a rich man, and his father says, "No, you are getting married." So there are 7, 8 girls lined up. Mala dalega, iske dalega. Now, where can you take a display? There were 6 girls who had do nothing. You just stand there for 1 thing and go. I have to travel with the play. Nobody will agree to come. So what do you do? Go back to the production, and it comes to you. All dolls of girls are like puppets in the strings of the fathers. So fathers come as puppets, different schools of puppets, and it became an explosive scene when that scene came. The song was happening, marionettes, glove puppet, string puppet, or full puppet, and the metaphor was made. What girls are all about. So we break the tradition. We transit into another art form, and that helps us. Same way I did, say for example, I was interested in I actually read this book called Mahatma and the Poet. I've started making plays out of books now, not plays. They're literally a text. I look at this, this is the correspondence between Tagore and Gandhi in the background of freedom struggle. Till then, I, like a fool, thought they were great friends. They loved each other. They respected each other, which they did, but they never agreed on anything. Not a line. And that is the correspondence. And that correspondence is of what quality? And I thought, no, it cannot be translated. Gandhi writing English, equally great English like Tagore writing him back. And now it's, I said, my name is this, I'm going to act this, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to act. We are going to read only their letters and filling out. Letter, reading, letter, reading, letter. 1%, 2%. But to link it together, cinema. I had to use videos. So was a research on the freedom movement, get stuff. And it worked. I translated to cinema. And it was no more dramatic and screaming at each other or and it was just reading. And but what happened was after half an hour, 1 hour after, these actors who are basically like start it gets it sort of possesses them. They start behaving like them without anything. But then there is a break. Hey, what are we doing? So this keeps this has been, I've been doing this kind of transcending medicine, and it's no sacrilege. We should be doing all the time. Is because the challenge today is for me is there is a lot of crap culture happening, whether it is Indian cinema, whether it is our festivals, whether it is our theatre festivals. Something has gone wrong with it, and we need to perhaps reset the gears for it, and that's where we'll be transcending through this, crossing boundaries apart. For last thing, I'll tell you, I did a project with Ashoka University on Ashoka. E.M. Krishna phoned me, said, "I'm here. You have to make a film on the edicts." Oh, the film? Where's the money? He said, "We have got the film money for you." How much? 5 lakhs. And I will sing, you make the film. And we had a lot of meetings with the historian, Nanjo Prairie, who was explaining us, and the person who reads Brahmi, who could read all these rocks, was trying to. Finally, the discussion, I said, look, and they do something to make it contemporary. I mean, where to get around the rocks? It's nothing else. And he said, what do you think we want you to do? So what did I do? I went to Kashmir. Motivation was there was a Vaidyanathan Tagore had made a painting in Kashmir of Ashoka on the Shankaracharya hill, looking down upon the city of Srinagar, which was Ashoka's city, Ashoka made Srinagar city. And from there came the folk form of Kashmir, one person. And through that, I entered the space and painted a piece which, I mean, I can't be seen. It's a very abstract piece. We don't read those lines. We just have the sound of just chisel and this. And these two clowns who are talking of the present and searching where are these temples not? Where are not people in the city? What has happened to this city? And first 5 minutes of the film is all every frame is a barbed wire, which is omnipresent this time in Kashmir. Barbed, months and months of in every village you will discarded barbed wires or on this metaphor. So I will use any kind of thing that will be aesthetically appealing me and gives me scope and confidence. I can explore what I want to explore. Thank you.
बहुत बहुत आभार राणा साहब का इस बहुत ही प्रेरक उनके उद्बोधन के लिए, उनके वक्तव्य के लिए। एक अलग पर्सपेक्टिव से विषय को आपके सामने रखने के लिए अगले वक्ता के रूप में जिन्हें मैं आमंत्रित करने जा रहा हूं, संजय के रॉय, जो कि एक आर्ट एंटरप्रेन्योर के रूप में उनकी ख्याति है। टीम वर्क आर्ट्स के आप मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर हैं और ये बड़ी एक कमाल का उनका कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन है कि 42 शहरों में 17 देशों में 33 से भी अधिक फेस्टिवल्स का आयोजन जो है वो आप करते रहे हैं और शाहजहानाबाद ट्वाइलाइट ईयर्स फिल्म के लिए आपको राष्ट्रीय उत्कृष्टता पुरस्कार से और सर्वश्रेष्ठ निर्देशक के पुरस्कार से भी सम्मानित किया गया है। सलाम बालक ट्रस्ट के संस्थापक ट्रस्टी हैं आप, भारतीय वाणिज्य तथा उद्योग महासंघ की कला और संस्कृति समिति के को चेयर हैं, सह अध्यक्ष हैं। इसके अलावा इवेंट एंड एंटरटेनमेंट मैनेजमेंट एसोसिएशन के आप फॉर्मर प्रेसिडेंट भी। आपने दुनिया भर के बहुत सारे जो मेजर यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं, विश्वविद्यालय हैं, उसमें अपने विषय को लेकर बहुत सारे व्याख्यान दिए हैं और कई तरह की इस तरह की जो गतिविधियां हैं आर्ट एंड कल्चर से Sanjay Roy for his address and his lecture on this subject.
इतनी लंबी introduction, it's primarily because I have long hair ना, तो जब लंबे बाल होता है, so you're given all of these many accolades from doctorates to sitting on many committees. So it shouldn't be taken seriously, ये नहीं. But thank you so much. To begin with, just to the president of the Sahitya Academy and to the secretary Srinivas Rao for his energy. Every year he brings together, I think, the largest number of writers in one place and poets and thinkers. And to them, I think on behalf of all of us, a big round of applause for the Sahitya Academy. And thank you to the Honorable Chair, the Governor of Goa. मैं कल तक गोवा में था. I just came back today. So be it dance, music, theater, puppetry, architecture, design, food, math, everything begins with one point, which is the idea. What separates us human beings from the rest is that possibility of having an original idea. And that original idea, as Jatin said or MK said, can come together from your experience of listening to the rivers, of climbing a mountain, of looking at nature, of being part of a community. And it's from that idea that we translate sometimes into literature, which then finds depth in music and theater and puppetry and architecture and tradition. If you look at Josephine Quinn's book, How the World Made the West, you will see how ideas travel from places like India and the Far East, and they travel through to Arabia, and from Arabia they traveled to the Levant, and from the Levant they went out into the West. And this idea of civilization, being civil, came from these places. The Fibonacci numbers were not originally Fibonacci's or Italian. The Fibonacci numbers came from Arabia, or the Arabic numbers, which in turn came from India, from Brahmabhat. If you look at the inscriptions and the writing of each of this, either written in poetry or verse, or through the oral traditions that we now know of the Ramayana, of the Mahabharata, of the Jataka tales. Jataka tales tells us what? It talks about the environment. It talks about your need to be able to understand the environment's role in our daily activities, in our daily life, and the importance of rivers, of nature, of mountains, of trees. If you look at the idea of Durga, the idea of Durga came first and then came the Chandi part. The Chandi part followed, which gives you 700 different verses celebrating the very idea of Durga. And then you look at the iconography of Durga, aap dekhoge, you have the peacock, you have the snake, which is in contrast. You have the chuha, which is the vehicle. You have the swan, you have the lion, you have the mouse. All of these are in contrast, but all of them have a space not just in mythology, but in our everyday life. All of these, again, are given life and form through the written word, through the idea of literature, through the idea of poetry. If you look at I think MK, you were talking about Ajanta, going to Ajanta recently. If you go to Ellora, for example, where the Rashtrakutas came up with the thought of how do I outdo, politically, how do I outdo and show that we've come of age beyond what the Chalukyas did and what the Pallava kings did and what the Chola dynasty did. So they decided the idea was we want to dominate in the space of architecture. So they took those verses and then started cutting this enormous mountain, this basalt mountain, and created what we now know as the rock temple of Ellora. All of this comes from literature. Literature binds us. Look at mathematics, for example. The idea of mathematics, the idea of infinity, the idea of space, the idea of expansion of space, again comes from that idea, but is represented and presented in the literary form. So it's not just the performing and the visual arts that finds a shared space. The shared space there's no disconnect there. All of us work together, Yatindra and MK and Sundeep, and all of us work together, be it in theater, in puppetry, in film, is it, yeah, in literature. All of this work that happens together, there is a contiguous fold. And what is that contiguous fold? The idea of celebrating humanity. Yesterday, Elon Musk said on a Twitter feed that empathy is the biggest weakness of humanity. Empathy and love is the base and the foundation of humanity and our human principles, which are again written through poetry, through architecture, through worship, through every form. Because without empathy and without love, we will be no different from animals on the street. This is the principal idea that we have. And this sharing like a great big river, as it picks up boulders from one place, leaves from the other place, tree trunks from a different place, the Himalayas coming down into the plains and flowing like this enormous river, it's the Ganga, into the sea, is really in many ways evocative of the idea of literature. As it picks up speed or as it slows down, as it flows through the plains of North India, it assimilates languages, traditions, ideas, people, communities, women, transgender, and it celebrates them through poetry, as you do. It celebrates them through literature. It celebrates them through theater. It celebrates them through the visual language. And if you walk around here, again, everything is this celebration. The design of a book is a coming together of all of these different forms of how to make something dramatic. So there cannot be a differential. We keep saying ये dance तो अलग है, theater तो अलग है, music तो अलग है, नाटक अलग चीज है, literature अलग है. There's nothing अलग. It's all one. And each one of you writers in the room, you know this, because this is what you celebrate. When you receive your poetry or you receive your piece of literature or you receive your play, क्योंकि at the end of the day हम तो कह सकते हैं कि हमने लिखा है, पर हमें ये भी पता है कि देन कहीं और से आ रहा है. The idea comes to us. You wake up in the morning, or you wake up in the middle of the night, or suddenly while eating your favorite food, the idea comes to you, and that's when you start writing. And that idea is the same, be it in theater or music or dance or literature or architecture, etc. I think Jatin talked about the idea of aesthetics and architecture. For a long time, we've been saying that these are part and parcel of our education process. You cannot start learning about aesthetics and architecture and tradition when you finish school and college. You must start when you're in kindergarten. You cannot learn aesthetics and traditions. You have to feel and imbibe it. Today, if you go to Durga Puja in Calcutta for that 1 month, you will see so many thousands of ideas coming together in those Durga Puja pandals. They are amongst the greatest installation art that you can see today. And that's a translation of somebody's ideas, somebody's script, the Chandi part all coming together as a visual representation. What is it that Tagore did that he has lived on across centuries? That one idea he was able to pen down, and that idea still resonates with us. What did Shakespeare do? That still resonates today. And if you want to understand the politics of our time or the politics of America or the non-politics of America, read Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote about it so long ago. What does Nandita's films talk about? All of these are again, finally they come from an idea into a text, into a visual demonstration, into a celebration of life. And most importantly, what does it do? It makes you want to question. As an artist and as a human being, you do not question and do not push back. Society will not evolve. How is it that sati, which was a tradition, was pushed back? It's exactly, you have to keep asking the questions, and these are difficult questions in difficult times. And if you do not allow a voice as artists to come through in your music, in your film, in your poetry, in your dance, no different. Responsibility, responsibility. It is each and every one of our responsibility to ask that question, to question the art. Today, sadly, Chairman Sir, we do not have in our newspapers. Can you hear me? Or you need it for the television? In our newspapers, we do not have art pages for criticism. How can any art evolve without criticism? How can any visual artist understand his work if there's no criticism or there's no considered critique on that work? How can a poet own his or her form without that critique? How can a sculptor, a theater person, any of us work without somebody holding that mirror to us? That is the power of literature and storytelling. I will end with a small story. We had for the first time, it was बहुत भीड़ इकट्ठा हो रहा था. So we put into place security. Chopra was going to come. I receive everybody, and some of you would have seen me for 1 hour every morning. And I was standing there, and a man and a boy came through the Haveli gate of Diggi Palace. उस वक्त हम Diggi Palace में हुआ करता था. And the security stopped them because they didn't look like they belonged. So because I was there, I went up and I said, Bhaiya, kya baat hai? Can I help you? And he said, मैं SMS hospital के आगे के सामने सोता हूँ. और मुझे पता है to afford to buy him a book nor send him to school. But I thought if he heard a story, it will change his life forever. And I hear that you tell stories at the Jaipur Literature Festival. So I have brought him here. And then he said, and I said, नहीं, यही मंच आपके लिए है. And that for us was the first time that we realized, हाँ, हमने कुछ actually किया है. ये नहीं कि हमारे लिए किया है. हम उन लोगों के लिए करते हैं जिनके पास कोई और सहारा नहीं है। इन्होंने इंट्रोडक्शन में बताया कि I set up the Salam Balak Trust 36 years ago. Our prime activity in Salam Balak that's the power of storytelling. That's the power and the responsibility of each one of us here. Our constitution today is one of the finest documents ever written in the last 100 years. Constitution enshrines on its borders, again bringing together the idea of the written word and how that works with literature. Thank you all so much. And again, congratulations to the chairman and the Sahitya Academy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay Leroy. Hello, hello.